the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and Truth and Reconciliation. Truth and Reconciliations, recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect for our community. Looked away for 1 second and lost my space. I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of February 10th and the closed session of February 10th. Deputy Mayor Lee and Councillor Bauer. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. Is there any questions? Seeing none, I need a vote. Do I have to turn my mic off to vote? Oh, okay. Well, it's been a long time. Okay. Thank you. I need a motion to move the closed session of February the 10th. Councillor Bauer, if there's any questions, of course, we'd have to go in camera. Are we okay? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. So from our consent agenda, I have polls of 4-1, 4-2, 4-4, 4-5, 4-6, 4-7. It's probably easier to say what's not pulled. What is that? 4-8, 4-9, 4-10, 4-11. So I need a motion to move the remainder. Councillor Henry? All in favor? Oh. We didn't vote. There we go. Great, thank you. So the first poll, Councillor Henry, you pulled one, but you're not going to talk about that one. Okay, so we're not going to do that. Poll 2 is Councillor Bauer. Oh, yeah, right, sorry, my bad. Do you want to move it? Okay, can we vote on that? Has everyone voted? Great. Councillor Bauer, do you want to put your mic on? Thank you. So you've got the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Finance Department for this tax section status report. Excellent report, and it's nice to see some of the positives that are coming out. So thank you. I did have a question on page 14 where there's mention of the online property tax portal. Can you please talk a little bit more about what kind of access residents will have? Is that information only, or will there be transactions, etc.? Please.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. The portal will primarily provide information, so things like your tax account balance, your tax and arrears, so past due amounts, future installments that are owed, your property assessment values, and detailed transaction history.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I'm guessing that is probably the most common questions for residents to call in about?
Yes, they are, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I'm glad to see that coming.
Thank you.
That was, yeah, actually, extra question. Do we see it in the future as becoming something that will be transactional, or will it be read-only?
There is a potential for a phase 2, and in that phase 2, there would be potential for making payments, purchasing statements of accounts and things like that, but we haven't really looked at that at this point, and it's something that we're looking to potentially implement in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Chair, and I'll happily move in.
Okay, and the vote is open. Thank you. The 4-4 was pulled by Mayor Collier and Councillor Henry. I need you to, okay, Mayor Collier, you can go first. Nancy, can you put your request in? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I actually will have an amendment on this. So I don't know if you want to go to Councillor Henry first before my amendment. It's just to change the dates.
Okay, if you're okay, I'll let Councillor Henry go first, and then you can put your request to speak in.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry?
Thank you. My question was with regards to the dates, and is there any way that the budget could come in November as opposed to December? Who would answer that? I know Director Valentine's away.
Through the chair to Councillor, through the chair to Councillor Henry, staff take a lot of time to take a look at the whole budget process in its entirety. Bringing forward an earlier budget in November, while, it is possible, it does take some time to put together. So, budget dates are proposed. We look at the regional meeting schedule as well, and as SMT make a decision to bring it forward at a time that allows for sufficient time to properly plan for both operating and capital projects and bring forward a complete budget.
Thank you. And so you mentioned SMT. So we have, we started it, I think, February or January when I was elected, then it went back, and then it kept going backwards. Can we not get it, I'm putting out this request for the ears on the other side of the aisle there, but, the end of November, and the reason I say that is it's close timeline to the regional budget as well, and I know that I think this year, Councillor Lee mentioned to me just a few minutes ago that there might be a week of separation between the two budgets as now, between local and regional. Have we looked at that for this year?
Through the chair, yes, we did take a look at all of those times. And, if we were to bring a budget forward much earlier, it reduces, the accuracy of estimates, there's some data that may not be available. So while we do try to bring it forward before the new year, we have to be mindful of that as well.
Okay. And has there been a change from 7 days to 14 days with regards to the budget and the time it's out to the public? Was there a change on that or no?
No, we tried to keep the dates fairly similar to what they've been in the past.
Okay, so I received correspondence from a resident. I'm just going to read the correspondence, not the person's name. The mayor's budget from 14 days currently 2025 to 2024 budget to 7 days upcoming for 2026. So there has not been that change?
Through the chair, I would have to go take a look. I believe the timelines have been kept similar to the ones that were submitted for 2025 budget.
Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to wait and see what the mayor's change is. Thank you.
I'm going to let Councillor Lee go first. I'm trying to.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for that question. What about the inverse? What if we do it later? Is there any issue with doing a budget in January? So we receive the budget on January 2nd, and then debate with everything by the 16th. And we would have the regional numbers too to actually give us a final number, wouldn't we?
Through the chair to Councillor Lee, yes, we could bring a budget forward in January. Through the Strong Mayor's budget, though, it does have to be done and delivered prior to February 1st. Sure. But that is an option.
Later. Okay, so yeah, I'll also wait to see what the mayor's suggestion is. Again, I think our experience last year was it was a perfect storm of the local budget and the regional budget within 3 days, I think, and it was just a lot to read and process, amendments and everything, and I think it would be a cleaner solution for Ajax. I think we used to do them in January as well, to go back to the January timeframe, but we'll wait to see what the mayor's amendment is. Thank you, Chair.
Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. And I've been receiving a couple of messages from the clerk, and this won't be an amendment, but it is relative to what Ms. Meppen was just saying. I looked at, so this is done through Mayor's Directive. So what we're doing today is basically just, as we did last year, reducing the veto periods. The Municipal Act allows quite a bit of time between the meeting and me to provide a veto. I think it's 7 or 10 days. I don't need 7 or 10 days. I need 1 day. I probably need 1 minute. So that's why we brought forward that change as we did last year to reduce that time frame, because like I said, it doesn't take that long to make a decision. If I'm going to veto something, I'll veto it at that point. And then council, likewise, probably doesn't need 10 to 12 or whatever the period is to make a decision whether they want to veto it or not. And I think the reduction in here from memory was 6 days. So this is pretty much the same as last year and will stay the same. I was going to move an amendment to basically, instead of having the budget date on December the 8th, move it to December 15th. Because we already have a GTC meeting on December the 8th. I prefer not to see something bumped and load up the meeting before or the meeting after, because they're pretty full when we reach the end of the year anyway. I think that allows us a little bit of time. I'm told by the clerk now that I can just do that by amending the Mayor's Directive, because this is done by Mayor's Directive. So I will be making that change to make, and I did send the wording to the clerk, but basically to make December 15th the budget day, December 16th the mayor veto day, and December 22nd the council veto day. And neither of those veto days would change from the recommendation in this report today, but I will be moving to change the date to the 15th. Just want to speak to Councillor Lee's comment quickly about moving it to January, because I know, yes, we can. We're not, because of the reason why we moved it forward in the first place, which is, and maybe the treasurer can speak to this, but the preferential treatment we get from being first out the door for our bid process. And it's important to get this done in December, both the capital and operating budget, so we can hit the ground running, get those RFPs out, and be first in the queue to get that hopeful preferential pricing on our projects going forward. So there is no amendment, just for clarification.
So what you're saying is we have no choice? That's when you're putting the budget out?
The Mayor's Directive is just going to change it from the 8th to the 15th.
So directly in front of the regional budget. Regional Councillor Lee.
Could we get the treasurer to speak on this preferential pricing? I don't think I've heard that rationale before, or forgot it.
Through the chair to Councillor Lee. So the earlier we can get budgets approved, the earlier we can start putting bids out on the street. Like in the past few years as well, other municipalities have been approving their budgets earlier as well. So in order to be some of the front runners out there, you know, it's not guaranteed, but you know, we do our best to try to get the best pricing we can.
Like the 3 weeks we're talking about would drastically change pricing to that degree. Like I would argue the ability for council to process this information is probably better savings than like a theoretical savings, unless you have quantified that previously.
Through the chair.
Of course not.
We have not quantified it, but it really is up to the mayor's direction as to the timing of when the budget is deliberated on, or proposed, I should say.
Sure.
No.
This is a question to the clerk then. So is there an override on the mayor's budget timing? If we have 5 of us, can we then, I'm not saying we're going to, by the way, Mayor Collier, I'm wondering procedurally, are we allowed to suggest our own?
Through you, Madam Chair, no. So the mayor provides his mayoral directive on when the budget needs to be presented to him, and then he'll choose when it goes to council. Council has the opportunity to revise the timelines that the mayor was talking about for vetoes and amendments, but that's it for the budget.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm hoping there's some sort of happy medium to the perfect storm we had last year to have it again. So any amendments that I bring forward on timing will probably come at council, where I'll give the mayor to kind of discuss with council timing opportunities. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Henry.
Sorry, just clarification, when is the regional budget this year? On top of ours. What day, exact date, do we know?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe it's December 11th and 12th. So a Thursday, Friday.
And then we're going to have ours on the 15th.
Our meeting on the 15th, correct?
So we're back in the same situation as last year, back to back. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is moved by Regional Councillor Lee. The vote is open. Thank you. Sorry. I pulled 4.5, road resurfacing. I guess maybe I'm the only councillor here that gets excited about having 10 streets in her ward repaved. But what I wanted to ask is this a full-on, you know, demo where curbs are up and all sidewalks are up and everything is that what the plan is here?
Typically with a road resurfacing project, it is mostly a mill and overlay where the focus is primarily on the asphalt treatment. When we are doing those road works and we're establishing budgets for each of the roads, we are looking at curbs and sidewalks as well. So if they're in a state that we deem that they should be replaced at the same time, or it makes sense for that concrete work to take place at the same time as the asphalt, we will include it as part of the tender. So each road segment is a little bit different, obviously based on their condition and age and so forth, but for the most part, it's fairly minor in terms of the concrete work that we do, but it does have the potential to impact some driveway aprons and obviously people's entrance ways into their homes. But if it is minor, then we would typically deal with that through our operating budget sort of on an annual basis. So it's only where it's been identified as a need or where it makes sense from an asset management standpoint to do it at the same time.
So the area that have been identified, some of the older areas have no sidewalks at all. So that would be minimal, I think, in some of them. Like in the Pickering Village area, like either only one side has it, but there's not two sides. Some of them don't even have sidewalks at all. So that should be good, I suppose. And so that's all figured out into the budget then, right?
Yeah, it would be, in that case, it would be minimal curb work that would be curb and gutter that may be required in certain
Yeah.
sections. But we'd be able to speak to you in advance. So sort of our project manager, our contract admin person would be able to be specific in terms of what's in the tender for each of those road segments. So you'd have some idea in terms of scale of the impact on each of those roads.
Okay. My other request is that, given that it's probably going to affect about 600 homes, that we are coordinating with bylaw on any potential issues with parking on a street when necessary because of impact to driveways or curbs. Will they get a list of all of the streets that are going to be dealt with here?
We have an approach in the communication strategy sort of annually, so it does involve bylaws so that they are aware, and each individual homeowner does receive specific
Yep.
notice with respect to timelines for.
We're delivering them very soon. Rob and I told him he's delivering flyers with me. That's what makes me excited. Okay, so bylaw and operations are coordinating all of this, right?
Correct.
Right, perfect. Okay, can I move this? Okay, thanks. Councillor Bauer will move it, and the vote's open. Thank you. Okay. 5.6, was I the only one that pulled Harwood? 4.6? Oh, I thought, okay, all right, then that's me. The Harwood, so this is kind of in coordination with that and Roslyn. We have a lot of work happening on roads in the north in the next few years. Widening of Harwood, widening of Roslyn, BRT going down the middle of Highway 2. How are we going to manage, the royal we, going to manage all of this construction roughly intersecting at the same time. Do we have a plan?
We, to Regional Councillor Crawford, we're in the process, as you know, we're going through the design stage of both projects, being Harwood Avenue from Woodcock to Taunton, and then Roslyn Road from Westney to Lake Ridge. And Westney to Lake Ridge, along Roslyn in particular, will be developed in phases. So what I would say is Harwood Avenue in combination with Roslyn Road, there will be a phasing strategy that is in the process of being developed that will be conveyed to council later this year. Our plan, as both projects are running parallel from a design perspective, is to come back, and again, specific reference to Roslyn Road, with a proposed phasing strategy so that council understands before we move forward with the preparation of any tender documents or bid documents that council is aware of what the sequence of events would be. So there's a number of factors that we're considering right now. We're in the midst of land acquisition. We're working with a lexicon on utility relocations. We're working on understanding development impacts on certain segments of road. So there's a number of things that we need to take into account to ensure that the proper sequencing is happening with respect to our external stakeholders, but then at the same time ensuring that there is access from a resident standpoint so that traffic continues to flow through the town.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess. How are we, at what point will we be communicating with residents on all of this happening?
So and I'm sort of talking about both projects in parallel.
Sorry, yeah, I
close
apologize.
together, but both projects, as we go through the design process, are each intended to have 2 PICs, or public information centers.
Okay, good.
There will be sessions scheduled probably through the summer and into the fall. Again, most of these, it's not necessarily from a design standpoint, because the design supports EAs that were completed for both of these projects, which featured public consultation. So although the design aspects have been dealt with sort of generally through the EA process, this will be more with respect to details and timelines and phasing. So those public or PICs will be scheduled, my guess, between July and October. We're probably closer to the end of the year that, in terms of how the design will have advanced, that we'll be able to convey sort of what that phasing strategy would be. Right now, we're contemplating the November GGC meeting as a timeline to bring that report forward.
Great, thank you very much. Can I get someone to move this? Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee, and the vote's open. Thank you. 4.7. I have Councillor Bauer, Regional Councillor, my question is answered. Mayor Collier and Regional Councillor Lee. So Councillor Bauer, can you put your question on? There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. So I just had a question. On page 50, the table of risks, one of them is impact on other capital projects. So are we at the stage yet where you could speak to what are examples of some of the capital projects that could be delayed? And how will that be determined, and who will determine that?
So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, a couple of things on this front. First of all, I would say it probably is too early to determine if there's any impact on the other road-related projects at this point in time. Right now, in the capital budget, we've identified specific projects between 2025 to 2027, and they're generally itemized by year. Then there's a group that are lumped together from 2028 to 2034, where there's some significant road projects within that window. There's Church Street north of the highway, or the Hydro Corridor. There's Lake Ridge Road, there's Achilles, and then there's obviously Roslyn Road. So Hunt Street is also within there. So there's a number of road-related projects that are within that window. There's certain commitments that have already been made, such as Hunt Street, in terms of getting into the detailed design at this point in time. What I would say is right now, Roslyn Road is scheduled in 2 primary phases, being 26, 27 from Salem to Lake Ridge, and then 28, 29 from Westney to Salem. What we're looking at what we're bringing forward is a recommendation to try and compress those timelines by bringing it under one project. So we do see there being a community benefit by bringing it in as one. As an example, we've already spoken to a Lexicon who's already indicated, you know, when they're doing utility relocations, their goal would be to start and continue on without disruption. Right? So that's recent conversations that we've had, and we want, by having it under one project, it allows us to cash flow that portion of the project from east to west as one. So right now it's sort of, although it's not funded and it's not spoken clearly as you get beyond 28, right now we're sort of 2026 to 2029 for those two phases. We think of it as one project that, you know, the bulk of it could be done by 28, and you could almost save a year of construction time by having it as one phase. And it gives us some flexibility to look at how we phase it, understanding where development applications are coming forward as well, where some pressures may be, and it provides us some flexibility in terms of working with that contractor. Then there's obviously some other benefits that we see that we've itemized within this report as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I do understand the benefits for sure. So I guess my question is there an item in 2026? And I don't know if that would be because it's a mayor's budget or if it's staff direct, I'm not sure. But I don't want this to happen if it's going to push something from Capital 2026 that perhaps is needed to be done in 2026.
So with
Like,
respect,
yeah.
with respect to that comment, I don't see 2026 being impacted by this
Okay.
discussion today. Right now, we're doing and completing the detailed design for phase one, or, well, sorry, for the entire stretch from Westney to Lake Ridge Road. And we already have $16 million allocated in 2026. So I see nothing changing on that front. And we sort of have cash flowed that between 2026 and 2027. The change may come as we get into 27 and 28 in terms of how we cash flow this project. But again, we haven't made any commitments or any indicated the priority of roads in 2028 and beyond at this point in time, which is why I say, you know, there's no real impact now, and we won't see it until we get closer into doing the budget and understanding the 2028 transportation projects that we'll bring forward as part of this year's budget.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And today's report is just to be received for information, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the thought process is, because we are doing the complete design, we will have estimated costs for the entire stretch of the road from Westney to Lake Ridge, because we are completing the design this year, and we will have that information in advance of the budget for 2026. So,
Awesome.
So that's happening regardless. That's work that's already been awarded.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director Meredith. Thank you, Chair. Those are my questions.
Regional Councillor Lee.
So just following up on what Councillor Bauer was saying, so this came from a council meeting where there was a motion to actually accelerate it. I referred it back, it's referred now, so at the next decision, it will be budget, is that correct? To ultimately decide whether to do this in two phases or one?
My thought would be is, there's sort of two steps to it. I think we will be presenting the phasing plan that I had sort of previously referenced, that'll look at how we can construct these roads in the most efficient way, minimizing community impacts, making sure it's the most economically feasible from an implementation standpoint. And that will be reflected in the 2026 budget. So under consideration in terms of what we'd be looking at is sort of cash flowing Roslyn Road as one project, probably between 2026 and 2028, which you would see in the budget, which would be based on current.
No, I get that. I guess what I'm saying is there's no decision from council right now. So right now, we're still going two phases until we decide otherwise. So I guess what I'm asking you is, that decision is going to come via a presentation that will get a budget time, or do you think we'll get that before?
Through you, Madam Chair, can I provide some clarity? So you're correct, Regional Councillor. The motion that you deferred is actually on our March council meeting. That's when it was deferred to. So today's report from Director Meredith provides additional information, and it's to be received for information. And the decision point will be at council next week, where the original notice of motion is currently on the agenda.
So my further question to Director Meredith is, the logic to reward this under one contract, it makes sense, but wouldn't this logic also apply to all future large-scale multi-phase projects? That from now on, we just do one giant project each time, we don't phase it out. And with the cost efficiencies, compressed timelines, all these, with the warranties being factored in, I guess like what struck me was that we were going, again, as I said at council, I'd always anticipated this being phases, and then all of a sudden we just merged it under one phase, and here's the rationale to it. The rationale would apply to any future project that has multiple phases. So I guess this is, what I'm suggesting is this is a pretty significant paradigm shift to do everything as one project. Why would we ever do things in phases again if it's always going to be compressed timelines, benefits to the community, construction phasing and whatnot are the benefits?
I could speak to it like just as a parallel, not necessarily road-related, but obviously if we look at something like the Audley Recreation Center, which was built in phases, right, where there's a clear delineation of a period of time, like we're talking multiple years between phases, right, where it's not practical or logical to construct it all as one, right? There's a cash flow standpoint in terms of the collection of DCs in order to fund those projects. With respect to road-related projects, this was deemed as an opportunity based on what's happening from a development standpoint, what's happening from a land acquisition standpoint. Like, there's a lot of infrastructure and design requirements that are involved with the entire stretch of road, right? It gives us, I think, some more flexibility in terms of how we implement and build this project. And when we look at it, we're trying to look at it from a community standpoint to try and minimize disruption as well. So you're right, normally they are clearly defined. When you're dealing with a large stretch of road, obviously, yeah, we don't have the same premise. We're not doing Roslyn Road from Church Street to
Right.
Lake Ridge Road all in 1 year. There was logical steps sort of in that process. We just felt that bringing this forward, that there were some opportunities, knowing what's happening with Medallion, knowing what's happening with other developments, knowing what's happening with sort of some of the land acquisition discussions, that they're not all running parallel. Everything's running on different timelines, and we could want to pivot and go to another section if we had the funding, if we ran into an obstacle in certain areas that allows the project to continue moving forward, as opposed to subsequently waiting for a future budget.
I mean, I'll just share my concerns with council. It's just, if there's overage on a project like this, and the overage, would also be increased, like the project scope is increased. And I think when you phase it, you can absorb it over time with future council kind of approval. I'll leave it at that. We'll look at this over. Obviously, no decision on the broader thing till next council meeting. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. And I think this is more, I hear what Council Lee is saying about, those concerns, but I think this is more like we did just the previous report in the accelerating the widening of Harwood, which I think was originally in the 2027 budget. We did that to facilitate the massive construction that's going to be going on down there with the currently owned tribute piece, the Grandview Children's Center, the Schlegel Village, 1541 beside the mosque down there, and then the other property, the vacant piece down by the Spiceland Plaza. It just needed to be done before rather than during all of this. And this is a similar situation. We've just, as a council, approved two major developments in there. We're in discussion with the Belmont owners on the south side that want to do something. I had a meeting at 12 o'clock today with the region to talk about the expansion they're doing on the water pumping station right on the northeast corner there, about how that's going to look. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff happening here, and I don't think any of us, I probably won't be on council at this point, but I don't think any of you want the additional headache of massive construction at the same time Roslyn Road is torn up and closed down in that section. It's just not logistically going to be good. We have the funds. I'm not worried about the funds. Because again, with all the new development, we're going to be collecting a lot more money in development charges in this area. So I think this, as Department Head Meredith said, it just makes sense, which is why it was brought forward to get all this stuff done at once. The EA is done, the land acquisitions will be done. If there is an area and one problem with one area, you can move it quickly to the other. I don't see this as something we're going to do every time. Roslyn Road is a long section. It's a significant expense, but we all know the headaches that were incurred to the west of Westney all the way through. I'm just trying to get us through this as quickly and as I guess painlessly as possible. I'll be supporting the recommendation what's coming to council next week.
Sorry, Regional Councillor Dies.
Thank you. Just through you, Madam Chair, to staff about the benefits of the community. I get that, improved public communication. Part of the issue on this street is how busy it is and congested it is. So is that going to be a really bigger issue when we do two phases at once? And what will that mean to traffic? Have we looked at that?
A couple of things, and I'll let Mr. Romaneski chime in a moment, but when we're looking at obviously the construction of a road such as this, we're still building it in phases, right? Like we don't have construction happening along all segments of Roslyn Road at the same time. So there still will be clearly defined phases where construction will take place. And as I mentioned, we'll be bringing a report forward to council that'll very clearly show you sort of if stage one is, I'm not even going to say roads, but from point A to point B, you know, sort of for the first 6 months, right? There'll be a clear start and end to that phase, and then we'll sequentially move on. The parallel pieces where there's benefits is where we're talking about utilities that are occurring in the boulevard that won't impact traffic. Land acquisition, which is significant along this stretch of road, allows us flexibility in terms of having it funded as part of one capital project. But the project will still be built in phases, which is what we will convey to you. But at this point in time, and as we go through the detailed design process, once we have sort of the logical sequence of phases, that's what we will be presenting to you. And there are going to be some traffic impacts when you're widening a road such as this. And there are a couple of scenarios that we will present to you, from partial closures to full closures, that have both cost impacts and timing impacts that allow us to get the road done in the most efficient way. So we are looking at all of that.
And through the chair to Councillor Dies, coupled with that, we'll all, depending on the phasing or the timing and where these other projects are going, there'll be a whole traffic detour communication plan that will be part of that. So we'll have to send notice out saying what's going to be closed, where you would be detouring north and south or east or west, depending on that, what roads you should be using. And that'll be clearly itemized and identified in that traffic type of plan. We'll work with Dave's group and our transportation group to put that together, and work with Christie's group to communicate that out to the community well ahead of the works taking place and the detours coming into effect.
Well, thank you for that, because it's going to be a significant challenge. Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. My question would go back through the chair to go back to Director Meredith. So when we talk about overages and we talk about a project of this magnitude, wouldn't there be in fact a chance for less overages? Because like you said, you can bounce from section to section if you run into an issue with one section. Isn't there a less chance of that?
So there is some flexibility, obviously, that we would be building into the project. I want to be careful on the comment on overages, because overages will be based on sort of the budget that we establish through cost estimates that we receive through the consultant, and the market conditions based on the timing in which we bid the project.
Maybe it's not a fair question because of that.
Yeah, it would be impossible to protect in terms of the overage discussion. My hope is that we're targeting and building a budget with contingencies that will be appropriate.
Understood, thank you.
I have no other people on the speakers list. Councillor Henry, did you want to move this? Okay. Vote is open. Thank you. Okay, the next poll is 4-8. I pulled it and Councillor Henry, so if you'd like to put your speaker or your request to speak, Councillor Henry? There you go.
Thank you. Through the chair, my question is going to Director Romanowski, I believe, and it's with regards to, here we go, 1350 Church Street North. I'm noticing on page 54 that we are seeing 78 apartment units. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since I looked at the Church and Hunt Street area. Was that always there, or has there been a change there?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry. Did you say 1350 Church Street North? That's north of Rosslyn Road.
Yes, Church.
Yeah.
It's Church and Hearst.
Yeah, there's a block there that
Did I
is.
say Hunt? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. That's
I
why I was like a little
apologize.
confused.
Hearst.
But yeah, Hearst and Church.
Yes.
There's a block there at the southeast corner that has a proposal for an apartment building with underground parking and commercial at grade. It started as that. I think it went back to like a commercial plaza, and then
Yes.
it's now back to this other proposal.
So there has been some teeter-tottering. I'm not
There has
losing it.
been, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Because when I read this morning and I reached out to the community, I was like, is this what we last looked at? Because they had some concerns. So what are we looking at now? Just, is it the same retail? Is it retail on the bottom, commercial
Yeah, I
on the
believe
top?
there's some retail spaces, commercial at the bottom, and then residential above. It's neighborhood, the zoning allows for that. That was the original proposal, maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe longer. Then it kind of,
Prior
COVID
to me.
happened, and then prior to you being on council, and then it wavered back to just being commercial, and now
Yes.
it's back to this other version. So I don't know if it's economics, different business partners, financing, et cetera, but it's kind of going back and forth like a ping pong ball.
So how are we communicating that to the neighborhood? Because they're not aware of this.
And no, they wouldn't be. It's a site plan application. We encourage them if they have any questions about properties or they see properties haven't been acted on, if they have questions, they're more than welcome to contact the planning department. We'll give them the same update that I would have given you today.
Okay. We're not putting any letters out to them?
No,
No correspondence is going out?
no, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll talk after this meeting then, because I've got two groups of folks that want some information about what's going on there.
Sure.
Okay, and then with regards to the Peikoff property at 320 Audley Road North, Peikoff, are we looking at the north west corner of Audley and Highway 2? Is that, or are we looking at, because the Peikoffs own that whole property, are we looking at the portion, is this referring to the portion close to Kerrison or the portion close to Highway 2? It's same page, sorry,
Yeah,
page 54.
I see it there. Peikoff Industrial, 2,600 square meters, 320 Audley Road North.
Yes.
This is the main block between Alexander's Crossing and Audley and Highway 2. I think it's the front piece of that block, if I'm not mistaken, the parcel fronting right on a Highway 2. They were doing a lot of dirt moving and stuff like that
Yes.
over the last couple years, so it's that front-facing block right on Highway 2. That's across from the Pure Industrial building that's being built on the south side of Highway 2.
Okay, so this we're aware of. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't the development to the north, and it was something that folks had not been made aware of, that I have to do some additional
Nope.
reaching out. So that's not what that's for. And then with the, flipping back to the property at 1350 Church, it's more of a regional question, but I am going to ask, with this new change, with residential coming there, we know there's a school going into that area, so I'm sure there'll be accommodation for the school. there's no church on transit, I believe. I checked with Regional Councillor Lee this morning. Will this help to push for transit on Church Street? With this new residential coming in, more units? Because I assume there's reduced parking, is there not?
I don't know all the details about that. I think chances are they'll probably need some type of parking reduction if they haven't already received that through the zoning that's in place. Would it push for more transit? Of course, higher order development along like a main corridor like that eventually will push for development, but this development on its own probably wouldn't say now we need to have a bus route going down Church Street. That obviously leave that up to DRT to decide because their numbers are going to dictate where those transit improvements need to happen.
I agree, like not on its own, it's not going to do it, but we know there's some other stuff coming on Church further north, right? So but-
Over time, yes,
Yeah.
Church Street will be developed. It's kind of our last kind of greenfield area within the town. With this development, with the developments that have been essentially approved in principle from an OP zoning perspective north of the Hydro Corridor, there's a David Brand Priest Old Coghlan Home piece and Lakeview Homes. So that'll bring a significant amount of units. And then we have the mixed commercial corridor up at Taunton Church, which
Yes.
is not developed yet, still kind of that rural residential, country residential development. Sure. In time, transit probably will have a main, Church Street north-south, but that's not currently in place. I think we have, I don't even know if the bus goes all the way across Rosslyn Road to that point. I think it does. Yeah, you probably could tell us. But I'm just trying to recall, I don't often see buses going past there. I think it kind of deeks down and gets to the GO train station. And that's kind of like the hub for Ajax. So that's kind of maybe a bit of a dead zone from a transportation perspective. But it's still walkable down to like Rosslyn Road to catch the bus from that location. But in time, transit should probably be along Church as development continues.
more fulsome transit over there.
Correct.
That would be nice, because sometimes those folks feel like they're, an island on their own, right? They're so close to Pickering, they kind of feel forgotten sometimes because they're their own little community there. So they asked this morning about that. That was a residential question. They want to know about transit. So I guess that's going to go back to the chair, because she looks like she wants to answer that question on transit. Do you?
I was just going to say
Chair?
that we do have on-demand services, and as on-demand services get busier and busier and busier, it triggers for a bus to come in. So we're similar to the schools. We need to see the whites of their eyes using one of our forms of transportations, so then that will trigger a bus to go on there on a regular route. If we don't see it, then we don't know they're there, right? Because it's
Yeah.
all based on data.
Yeah.
So the way we determine whether or not a bus is going to be put onto a route is if on-demand suddenly starts to get busier and busier and busier. And then that will trigger us to say, okay, let's look at this. We might have to put a bus here.
Do you also use that, is there a benchmark that's used for development? Like, okay, there's been this much development added to the area?
No, because you could put 10 towers there and not one person use the bus.
So on-demand is the key.
On-demand is the key
For
that
all those
triggers it.
listening at home, on-demand is the key. Okay, thank you.
Just saying, yeah.
And Chair, I could just add, I was just looking at the system map here. It looks like Route 211 goes up Ravenscroft, comes along Rosslyn for a little bit, then turns south on Church. So
Yeah.
that would be kind of your transit hub
Yeah.
pickup point for anything north of Rosslyn Road along that corridor, it looks like.
So on-demand, if they're within the proper meters, then on-demand would take them to that bus stop. They would hop the bus, and then go on from that point on.
Yeah, and from there, it looks like it takes you down, if you're going back in Ajax to the GO train station, or if you're going west, it'll take you to the transit hub right at the bottom of the Worm Tower
the
there, where
Pickering-
Durham College
Pickering
is,
Yeah.
at the Pickering GO.
Yeah.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
I think I had a question. Oh, yeah. Permits are down by 5.5%. We don't see a lot of movement in shovels in the ground. DCs, I believe, are triggered once occupied, is that right? How do the DCs work in this new system? Just remind me again.
DCs are triggered at the time of permit issuance. So when we issue permits, that's when like before we issue the permits, it's kind of like, you know, here you go.
Okay.
With some taller buildings, there is the opportunity for developers to enter into like a deferral agreement. Well, they'll defer payment until the first above grade permit. So we can initiate kind of like that foundational build and get that going. But typically, you want your permit, you got to pay your DCs and your permit fees.
Okay, so we're not,
That's how it works.
because we rely on the DCs for all this other road work that we're talking about, right? So we're not, you know,
Yes.
we're not, yeah, okay. Are we noticing, or maybe you don't know that, I'll just ask a question. Do you know, is other municipalities seeing the same thing where there's a decrease in permit activity?
I would assume so. We haven't consulted with
Yeah,
other
just-
municipalities, but if we're all experiencing the same thing, at least from a planning and development perspective, where all these changes through Bill 23, 108, 109, just, you know, pull
Tariffs.
the string, those things have kind of, plus the economics and interest rates, and now we got tariffs and all those other things. I'm sure those are also contributing to like kind of that slow down a little bit, or maybe that hesitancy of making those full submissions. So, I mean, that's really the environment that we're all in. So I imagine a lot of municipalities are having some of the same numbers, unless, you know, maybe it's a Whitby where they have like huge, massive greenfield developments that are being built, and
Single
that's
house?
maybe different
yeah.
because we were there between like 96 and 2003. So we already had our kind of
They're
big,
still
huge
sprawling.
bump. So it's
Yeah.
a little different, but maybe maybe there's that same song in other municipalities, just to a different tune maybe.
So once the world figures itself out, that's when everything's just going to start flying, right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Henry, would you like to move this? Vote's open. Uh, 4-9 is pulled by Mayor Collier. Would you like to, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't mind dealing with 4-9 and 4-10 at the same time if you like, because my questions are the same for both. I guess these are significant bids. In the first one, you know, I think we had, I'm going from memory, but I think 11 registered, but one bid. So I guess first of all is, what is our policy on this? I know when we do procurement, there's a few different options. One is reduce the scope, one is deferred, and one is to, you know, there's a few things. But in this case, when we're looking to hire a consultant and we only get one bid, is there a policy around this?
Through the chair to the mayor, when we issue a bid, we have to take the bids that come and evaluate them properly. As long as they are compliant, they meet our requirements. You know, it was a fair and transparent process.
And how much of these fees will we recoup? Because we transfer the costs of the architectural review and the other onto the developer, I believe. So is this a cost neutral bid?
Through the chair to Councillor or Mayor Collier, yes.
Okay. And finally, please assure me this is a Canadian company.
100% Canadian company.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Happy to move 4-9 and 4-10. I assume those answers apply to the second position as well, Mr. Romanowski?
Yes, sir. More or less. That's correct. It's more along the lines of we don't have the expertise in the mechanical,
For the engineer?
structural. And not only that, buildings are becoming more complicated. We got mixed use development. We got higher structures. A lot of the builds that are happening now really require that level of mechanical and structural expertise. Even to the point where we have people that do stuff they shouldn't do inside of their houses and remove floors and stuff like that, or walls where we need to have a proper engineering consultant with a engineering degree to kind of evaluate that, because we don't have that on staff at the moment. So just add that to the item for 410.
So
Can you-
the engineering still gets passed on those costs to the applicant.
In this case, for the structural review, I think we pay those costs, and it's built into the permitting fee for that
permitting
review
fees.
or that component of review.
Okay. Madam Chair, happy to move.
Can you just do 4-9, because I still have a question for 4-10? Okay, 4-9 is moved by
Okay, happy to move 4-9.
Mayor Collier. Thank you. Councillor Bauer, you had a question on 4-10?
Am I on? Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Director Romanowski, for answering most of my questions. And I'm assuming this is a position, this is the general structural and mechanical review position that we are looking to recruit someone.
Yes, we have been actively looking. We've had a posting for the last couple years out there. We haven't been able to recruit a proper candidate. We're working with HR to advance other strategies to attract that staff person. But that's not to say that this contract service wouldn't still exist in some way, shape, or form, because that PEng, the engineering component, is necessary. We still, even through the full-time employment position, we may not exactly have all of those aspects, so we would supplement that review with contracted services.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Thank you. My other questions were answered. I'll move it.
You move it? Okay, moved by Councillor Bauer. Votes open. Thank you. The last one is 4-11, pulled by Councillor Bauer, Councillor Henry, Regional Councillor Lee, and Mayor Collier. So, Councillor Bauer, would you like to start?
Sure, thank
And
you.
could everybody else put their request to speak in? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have a few questions. So I'm unclear of what the council information package really is and what the intent of it is. So can you please provide examples, other than the advisory committee reports and proclamations, et cetera? What are we receiving that would now be received in a CIP, please?
For sure, through you, Madam Chair. So the CIP is something that's used by a lot of municipalities, along with Durham Region. And it really takes away things from the council agenda that are just to be received for information. So like the two things you mentioned, along with correspondence. So the idea is that you would still receive everything once a month. It would be posted publicly still, so everything is still publicly available. And that information would be available for you in a separate package called the CIP. And there is an avenue for a member of council to pull anything from the CIP to a future council meeting if they'd like to endorse it or discuss it or something along those lines.
Okay, so it's just a different place to store information, like it doesn't, how does it make the agenda less cumbersome?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, so the agenda would be smaller, basically. It would take away things that don't necessarily require decision of council. So the idea is to focus these meetings on things that require decision of council and staff time and questions from members of the public, and then things that don't require decision of council that are shared on an information basis would be provided in a separate package for you to review at a different time. So it wouldn't be provided with the council agenda. It would be provided separately. So it would reduce the amount of things that you had to review within the timeline of when the agenda is published to today's meeting. So it would give you additional time to review that outside of your agenda packages and provide us with notice if you'd like to add it to an agenda package. And at that time, you would have already reviewed it. So it's not an additional thing to review before your meetings.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. My next question is about the removal of the question period on the council meeting agenda. I don't understand. Could you please explain, how does this improve our meetings by taking away that avenue?
So through you, Madam Chair, as clerk, it's my role to do benchmarking and look at best practices across Ontario. So this is one of the things that has been noted as something that not a lot of municipalities still have. Our current procedure bylaw says that the question period is optional for residents or members of the public who would like to ask a question related to an item on the agenda to the mayor. We currently have a very long deadline for delegations related to items on an agenda. So we have the Friday before a Monday council meeting of noon where people can put in a request to be a delegate. So anybody who has a question on an item on the agenda still has the opportunity in the draft procedure bylaw that's in front of you today to register as a delegate up until Friday at noon. The question period is just something that we've noticed is sort of outdated and has been recommended to be removed from the current procedure bylaw.
Okay, recommended by clerks?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so what it does take away is the last minute resident who might be worried about coming or not sure if they have a question or not, but shows up at the meeting and decides, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Correct, and I would add that they do have the opportunity to still provide any information or questions to their members of council, and you can choose in your seat whether to bring those forward at that point as well.
Okay, okay, thank you. I don't like I'll just state that for the record. The perception of removing the opportunity for any resident to come and ask a question of a council agenda, whether it's prepared or on the fly. We like to be engaged with our residents. We like to be transparent and open, and I feel that moving this optional piece is not the right step. Just my opinion, thank you. And then my other question is regarding, I don't know if it fits with minutes or recorded votes, but I know that often we are asked outside of our meetings for some of the more maybe contentious items, how did you vote on this? Who voted yes in favor or no opposed on this decision? And our minutes don't include that unless we request a recorded vote. I know if you watch it on the video, it shows, or if you're at the meeting, it shows on the screen. But, and I did speak to you before, and I appreciate the answer, thank you, but can we talk about it now? Is it possible to standardize the procedure of minutes where for an item that is not unanimously passed or failed, that we can record the results, so motion passed or motion failed, but also list who voted in favor and who voted against, just so that it's recorded in the minutes, so we don't have a resident coming to us, we say we can't remember, let's go to the minutes, they can't find it in the minutes, then we have to say what meeting was that, let's post it, let's go watch the meeting kind of thing. If it's in there, it's there, an answer easy to grab for any of us. Is that something we could consider?
So through you, Madam Chair, that would be an additional amendment to the procedure bylaw, which included recorded votes for all votes of council. And that would be something that yourself or one of your colleagues could bring forward. There isn't an avenue to direct clerks, as you're saying, to include the voting record on certain votes and not certain votes. That would be through requesting a recorded vote. So it would either be requesting recorded votes at your meetings of council if it's something that you don't think is going to pass unanimously, or it's an amendment that would put in there that all votes at council meetings would be recorded, and then we would include that recording in your minutes.
Okay, so I would like to put forth that amendment. I don't know if now is the time, Chair, and that was my last question.
Thank you. So we can just keep going with this speakers list, right?
I would recommend going with the speakers list because the item isn't really on the floor yet.
Right,
So
okay.
we'll start with that after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Aren't all of our votes recorded votes?
No, so through you, Madam Chair, we actually have increased transparency at the Town of Ajax by having the listing of who's voted for what in our YouTube videos, but in our minutes, they're not recorded votes. So, if,
you would have to specifically say, I'd like a recorded vote?
correct, any
And when
member
you
of
say that,
council.
it triggers it to go in the minutes?
Correct,
Ah, gotcha.
yes.
Okay, okay. Regional Councillor Lee.
No, Chair, at the appropriate time, I'll give you the amendment to include question period back into the procedure bylaw. It's okay.
Councillor Henry.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. And I'll second that if you need a seconder on that. I don't know if you do or not. Not committee. Okay. So with regards to the CIP, The CIP, so let's say a resident emails in something, they don't come to the meeting, but they email in correspondence. Does that go in the CIP in the new system?
So through you, Madam Chair, I would have to have a pretty specific piece of correspondence to sort of give you a fulsome response on that. If it's a piece of correspondence related to an item on the agenda, it would continue to fall onto your council agenda. So the idea is that everything that has to do with the items that you're making a decision on would still fall within your regular council agenda. We wouldn't be trying to ask you to pull something to a future meeting. If it's something that is a piece of correspondence received unrelated to something on the agenda, it would typically go to the CIP. Some things received by residents are received by members of council and not the clerk's office. So I wouldn't say that every piece of correspondence received by a resident will hit the CIP. It would be sort of discretion based on what it's about.
But, sorry, right now it does hit the council agenda, right? Like if, okay, I'll give you a more focused analogy. Let's say we're talking about bike lanes in North Ajax, and we're talking about ripping them up, and folks, we're not talking about that. So let's say that that is what we're talking about. We have a lot of correspondence that's coming in on the subject matter. Does it go into, in the new way of doing it, does it go into the CIP, or does it come to the council agenda?
So it's mostly correspondence from other municipalities that would hit the CIP. If
Okay.
it's something related to an item that we're discussing at a meeting of council, it would hit your council meeting agenda. If it's a general piece of correspondence that a resident has asked to be distributed to members of council and there's no decision, it would hit the CIP.
So if we had a resident that just wanted to give some correspondence on something that's in the agenda, but not specifically, it would hit the CIP?
No, so sorry, to clarify, if it's anything related to an item on the agenda,
Yes.
it will be on your council agenda. So we're not
Okay.
looking to hide anything that somebody has provided related to a decision that you're going to make.
Yes.
It's just removing things that are not decision-making for you to another avenue.
It's
they're-
decluttering.
Absolutely, yep.
It's like cleaning out the closet a bit,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is common at regional. This is how it's done at regional.
It's a very common practice, yeah. Durham
Okay.
Region has one as well.
All right, so I'll move on from that one. I had another question here. I do apologize. And we did clarify that this was something that was not asked of any member of council for you to bring any of this forward. This was just general housekeeping, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when we go to, I think it's page 91, it's 12.10 and 12.13, and we're talking about a recourse. So we have some red line items in here, and request a manner of recourse, and then 12.13, we have if the member fails to provide the recourse required by mayor chair, the member shall vacate their seat for the remainder of the meeting. That seems kind of strong. I mean, I think, we have some healthy debate on this council, but, we're not barbaric by any means. So where is this coming from?
So through you, Madam Chair, this is something that we noticed in our review of other municipalities, that we were actually missing an end to this process called points of privilege. So right in your current procedure bylaw, somebody called a point of privilege and the chair or mayor asked for an apology, let's say, and the member said no. There's no recourse from there forward on what to do. So it sort of is a process with no end currently. So this is a best practice that's in other municipalities, and this just gives an end to the process. So if somebody was to refuse to provide an apology, the chair, the mayor has the opportunity to then ask them to vacate their seat until an apology is provided.
Wow, that seems kind of strong. I don't think we're personally going in that direction, but okay. Where clerks receive, 7.4. Clerks receive multiple copies of correspondence containing the same or similar information such as letter form or templates. The clerk may include one copy of the correspondence and provide a summary of the remainder received. So summary makes me kind of nervous because I know that we had some feedback a while back with regards to IMO pages and us not receiving the fulsome report of all the comments I want to reword that. some residents felt that we weren't receiving the full sum, although staff felt we're going to do a summary. So with that feedback in mind, I guess I'd like you to speak to this a little bit more, why this is necessary.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just a bit of clarity here. So this is actually an example of, you'll see pieces of correspondence from other municipalities where half a dozen, 50 municipalities all pass the exact same motion, whether it's in support of something, maybe to another level of government, or some changes to a piece of legislation. So this is our current practice. What we do is we pick out the one that is most relevant to the town of Ajax. So if the town of Whitby has passed a motion, we'll include that one in your information package if we go that way, but we won't necessarily include 15 duplicate copies of the exact same motion from multiple municipalities. So it's not summarizing correspondence from multiple individuals like you're saying residents on an IMO page. It's just picking out the piece of correspondence when there's complete duplicates across the board from multiple municipalities.
I see. Another cleaning out the closet process.
Yes.
So it won't affect any feedback from residents. Again, we'll go to the bike lane scenario.
Correct.
North Ajax, taking out bike lanes. We have multiple constituents emailing in. You're not going to summarize it and put it together. You're going to give us all that correspondence.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure none of that process is changing. If you'll give me 1 minute here. Petitions. And petitions with regards to 5.5.6, all petitions include a minimum, a statement of the subject matter of the petition and the full name and physical address of the signatories. Does that not already happen?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, this is just cleaning it up to sort of meet best practices and current ways that we receive petitions. So our old language spoke strictly to hard copies, so it said on every page, and it spoke to having copies and things like that for a hard copy petition. But understanding that a lot of petitions are now electronic, we've simplified the language so that this can be applied to any type of petition that we receive.
So does that possibly change the validity of the petition, whereas, you know, you might think you signed one thing and you signed something else if it's not on the top of every page? Does that?
No, so through you, Madam Chair, this is ensuring that it is still at the top of every page, but if you look at an electronic petition, there might not be 20 pages worth of signatures. They may be on one long page, and it's in a completely different format than if you were to print like an 8.5 by 11 and walk around a neighborhood and have people sign. So this is just simplifying the language so that at a minimum, the statement of subject matter, which is what you're referring to, and the full name and physical address of everybody who's signing it is still available. So we're just simplifying the language instead of having it specific to each individual sheet of paper. It's that the petition as a whole needs to have that for every signatory to see while they're signing.
Got it. Okay. I believe that's all my questions. Just checking one final paper here. And yes, I think that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Mayor Collier?
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few comments. I did have some of my questions answered by the clerk. I'm going to be doing, anyway, I don't need to ask those today. I just want to speak to a couple of things. One, the CIP. We've had the region since Roger was there, so over 6 years ago. It's worked well. It streamlines the process. And just for example, things like, I think the clerk had mentioned correspondence. We know we might have 20 pieces of correspondence and they're just approved in one shot. So basically, unless you want something that's actually pulled for endorsement or something, it just basically streamlines that process. If you want it pulled for discussion, send the clerk an email and it'll be added back into the agenda. If you don't, then we don't. To the question period, and I'm in my 22nd year here, I can probably count on one hand the number of times, and 3 times for this term, that residents have come and asked a question under question period. So I absolutely agree with what the clerk is suggesting, just as I think also at the same time, council is much more accessible than we've ever been before through phone, email, text, online, social media. So really, rather than come on the floor to ask a question without any sort of notice that we in all likelihood might have to say, I'll get back to you on, it's a more effective process to actually send it in an email or something and let us get you a proper fulsome answer rather than put staff on the, under the gun on the floor. But I don't care either way. If Council Lee wants to bring it forward and have it, and Council, I don't care. If somebody shows up at Council and I'm the chair and they want to speak on a matter, I'll allow them. If they miss the deadline on the Friday, within reason, I'll probably allow that delegation, because it's not about trying to stifle debate and limit access. It's just more procedural. So I don't have an issue with that at all. And just, I want to follow up on Councilor Henry's comments about the petition, because really, I don't think any of them are relevant in my personal opinion. It's all in the question asked. And every petition I've ever seen has that same flaw where the question is geared towards what the person making the petition wants it to be, wants the answer to be. It doesn't have all the facts. But at least in this case, we're making sure that the people are, like, we know they're real people that are signing it, and they more or less know what the intent is. So I'm happy with all those changes. I'm happy to approve it as put forward. But if that amendment does come, I don't think it makes any difference, but I'm fine with it either way. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question about CIP. How far in advance do you need to, is there a time frame in which you have to pull? I don't know if I missed that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So our intention is to publish it on a Friday. Council will have a full week to review it and let clerks know if they'd like to pull anything, which will be on the following Friday. And then the council meeting agenda will be published the next Tuesday. Okay. So it's a pretty fair process, I believe.
One other thing, the CAP meetings that are public meetings.
Yes.
That doesn't stop question period for that, correct?
Yes, so just to clarify, question period is just part of our council meeting agenda.
Okay.
It's not GGC or CAP.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. I need a mover. Regional Councilor Dyes, would you like to move this? Oh, are you going to do an amendment? Okay, all right, okay, okay. Start the vote. No vote. It's moved. Never mind. Don't vote. Stop the vote. Okay. Oh, Sean voted. All right. I think we have some amendments, if I'm not mistaken. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, and if I could ask the clerk to word that amendment for me?
To you, Councillor, can I just request if you're putting both amendments in one vote today, or if we're doing them separate?
I'll do both.
Both.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee. Oh. Let's do it separately. I'm not sure what the debate would be on it yet.
So through you, Madam Chair, we will have revised wording on the draft bylaw that will be at your March council meeting. So we'll massage the wording that's currently in the procedure bylaw to reflect these two things.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Hold on, I'm just looking at 14.7 and 14.8. Do you want me to read it? Sure. Okay, so an amendment that question period be included in the draft procedure bylaw presented to council at their meeting on March 24th, 2025, and that section 14.7 and 14.8 be amended to show that all votes at council be shown as recorded votes in the minutes. So I think my question is, does that mean all of our meetings or just our council meetings?
So through you, Madam Chair, I believe that you said council meeting, so that's where we will go here with all votes at council. It won't be at standing committees.
So. Okay. Yeah, it's just ratifying. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't think. You don't even have a seconder at council. At CAP and at.
CAP sometimes, but not at GGC.
That's where our debate is.
Yeah, no. Yeah. No, let's, yeah, sorry. Thank you for, thank
can
you for
include standing
clarifying.
committees. Yeah.
I would like it amended, so for all of the standing committee meetings and the council, that all names are, it's all recorded votes. Thank you. And I know that does add additional time to the person creating the minutes, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor Collier, you have a comment?
I have a question on the amendments. When Councillor Bauer is speaking, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you had said only those votes that were not unanimous. Because just putting recorded votes like everyone this meeting that's been unanimous to me is a boondoggle, just a make work project for somebody. It's not going to serve any type of purpose. Could you just clarify, please? Because I can see some merit in listing votes that aren't unanimous, but just listing everybody's name 50 times in a meeting in favor, I don't see the value.
So through you, Madam Chair, this data is already captured within our hybrid meeting system, so it's not something that we need to manually capture ourselves. We can pull that information and have it included in the minutes.
Okay.
My recommendation would be that it's just an all or nothing approach. So it's easier for us to put together the minutes if all the data is captured through the system.
And Madam Clerk, can you just quantify, is this a significant amount of work or is this as simple as it's sounding? You already have it, it's just a matter of printing it. Or including it in the online version.
I can confirm that it is as simple as it sounds. We do have the information. It'll just be putting it into the format of minutes.
All right, so not creating some arduous task for somebody that's going to take a lot of time then. No?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor, I have you on, oh, you're off now, okay. Okay, so now we are voting on the minutes, and this is going to be all standing committee, council, okay. So the vote, is there any other questions on the amendment? None, okay. Starting the vote. Thank you. Okay.
So Madam Chair, just before you move on, can we get a vote on the main motion as amended?
Oh, yes, sorry, my bad.
Thank you.
Before we go? I just wanted to go back to 12.10 and 12.13 about people being removed from meetings. And I kind of feel this isn't necessary at this time. I don't think I personally have had some amazing feedback in the last week in particular from a lot of females at different organizations, different events we went to with Intimate Partner International Women's Day, and about how well our council gets along, and they're just saying what a great job. It seems like, you know, if we have discourse, we're handling it very respectfully, and what a beacon we are. So this is something that we're, you know, trailing first in #1 in Ajax, and I'm just asking, is this really necessary? I'm asking this of my, you know, my fellow councillors, how they feel about this. Is this part really necessary in here? So I'll leave that question on the floor.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Lee?
Following the clerk's logic, if someone's acting belligerent like that, and there's no recourse, then that behavior will continue, and there's nothing council can do. There's no, like, you can't do anything based on procedure bylaw. So I appreciate your idea that we don't do this now, but this is just to protect, you know, the chair and council decorum if that were to happen. I've been known to act crazy from time to time, and who knows, right? I honestly, I just, you know, I was in a position chairing a meeting where I was put in a very uncomfortable position because there was no procedure to protect me that I could follow. So that's why I think this makes sense. I think, yeah, it's also up to the chair, correct? Like, if no apology is given or nothing happens, the chair can also choose to move on. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, you Regional Councillor Lee. The chair is the one who will make the ruling during this. I will note, though, that it does say the member shall vacate their seat, so it would be something that the chair would have to stand strong on.
Do I have to change the wording to say that this is initiated by the chair, or the wording is?
You can. My recommendation would be to leave it as this. This is really something that's being added proactively to your procedure bylaws you were stating. It's not something that we've added as a reactive clause based on anything that's happening in
So
Ajax.
it really is like a worst case scenario, but it gives the chair the power to have an orderly meeting, which I think is a fair expectation. So I appreciate the fact that it hasn't happened, but doesn't mean it won't. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Henry?
So I guess my follow-up question would be, this is for chairing all meetings, correct? This is not just for one particular meeting, like council meeting, all meetings. So let's say, and this is through the chair to clerk. So let's say the chair decides, no, I don't think the comment warranted you leaving. You've been asked for an apology, you've refused, but I don't feel it warrants you leaving the room. But maybe a subtle warning is given to the person about, if this happens again, you know, you will be asked to leave. Is that sufficient in that scenario with this wording?
So through you, Madam Chair, the chair is in charge of the meeting while we're in the meeting. The procedure bylaw provides them the guide rails to make those decisions during the meeting. So there would be no recourse for myself or one of the clerk's department staff to step in at that point. It would be up to the chair at that point to decide how they wanted to handle the situation.
Okay. And they don't have to go to a vote to council? They could just say, no, that's enough. Okay, so as a, I guess when it's worded that way, as a precautionary in the future, I don't think it's necessary personally, but it could be. But I'm looking at, we don't know what's coming in the future. I think that, yeah, we could deal with it then. Thank you.
So now we need to vote on the, 4.11 as amended. I need a mover. Councillor Bauer? Oh, yeah, that's right, sorry, Councillor Dies, yeah. Oh, yeah, vote. Thank you. Okay, we have no discussion, no presentations. We do have a in-camera session. So I think, could we all take about 5 minutes break? Thank you. No, I have to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we have a vote to move into closed session and then we'll take a recess?
Regional Councillor Lee moves to move into closed session. Yeah, we are, but we have to go into closed session.
Madam Chair, can you just read the reason we're going into closed session or would you like me to?
We have an update on, do I read the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. An update on a lexicon to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communication necessary for the purpose, Section 239(2)F Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and to discuss matters pertaining to trade secret or specific technical, commercial, financial, or labor relation information supplied in confidence to the municipality or the local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice, thank you, significantly and competitive position or interfere significantly with contractual or other non-negotiations of persons, groups of people, or organization negotiations. It's big, it's a mouthful.
I couldn't say belligerent.
So we have a motion, start vote, to go into in-camera. Yes, we'll take a break. Mayor Collier, please. Okay, thank you. Great, thank you.